So in this video, we're going to be discussing evaluate questions. Remember, for evaluate questions, you're arguing whether something is suitable or unsuitable for a particular person, scenario, product, or place. Your evaluate is similar to your explain. You want to be given a description and a reason why, so your fact and your consequence. But you also want to be adding in an opinion. So is this a good or a bad thing? So what is the answer structure for evaluate questions? So there's three parts that you need in your evaluate answer. The first part is a fact, you then want to give an opinion, and you then want to give a consequence. Your fact is a fact or a short description about whatever's been asked about in the question. So it could be a nutrient, a contemporary food issue, a technological development. You then want to give an opinion. So this is this a good or a bad thing? Is this suitable or unsuitable? And then you want to give your consequence. So you want to explain why is this a good or a bad thing? And if there is a person or a scenario given in the question, then you want to explain why this is a good or a bad thing and be specific to them. So for instance, why would Cookchill products be suitable for a single person? Why would fair trade ingredients be suitable for a school canteen? So you do want to be specific and highlight the keywords in your questions. You know that you're being specific and you're linking it back to that person or that scenario in the question. You can then go on, and that's how you'd get 1 mark. So you need a fact, an opinion, and a consequence to get 1 mark. You can then go on and give a developed consequence if you know a little bit more about this fact or description that you have given in your first answer. So your developed consequence is either you going into more detail about the consequence that you have given, or it can be an additional consequence. So to recap, in order to gain 1 mark, you need to give a fact, an opinion, and a consequence. You can structure it with your fact to begin with, and then give an opinion, and then give a consequence. Or you can give your opinion first, then a fact, then a consequence. You always want to have your consequence last. And then to get a second additional mark, you want to add in a developed consequence. And remember, these are optional. So some top tips for perfecting your evaluations. Firstly, you always want to refer back to and be specific to the scenario, the product or person in your answer. Secondly, you want to make sure that you're always providing an opinion. You're simply just saying if this is suitable or unsuitable, or if this is a good or a bad thing. It's really important that you're putting these key statements, your opinion, into your evaluate question. Without this, you've not evaluated correctly. And lastly, you always want to make sure that you're looking at the mark allocation so you know how many fact, opinion, consequences and or developed consequences that you need to write. Remember, you'll get 1 mark for each fact, opinion, consequence that you get, and then a second mark you can get from any developed consequences. So let's move on to an example. So if you were asked to evaluate the use of additives in breakfast cereals, remember, we want to consider what the command word is, what the mark allocation is, and who or what you've to refer to. So our command word in this instance is evaluate. Remember, to gain our first mark for evaluate, we're given a fact, an opinion, and a consequence, and then we can gain a second optional mark from giving in a developed consequence. Our mark allocation for this question is 4 marks. In order to gain those 4 marks, we could just give 4 fact, opinion, consequences, or we might give 3 fact, opinion, consequences and then develop one of those answers further to give a developed consequence. Or we might feel really confident about our facts and know quite a lot about them, so we're going to give 2 fact, opinion, consequences and 2 developed consequences. And then finally, we've got to remember to consider who or what we've to refer back to. So in this case, we're evaluating the use of additives in breakfast cereals. So our answers need to refer back to breakfast cereals. So if we have a look at this example 2-mark answer. So our fact that has been given is that sweeteners are added to breakfast cereals to replace sugar content. It's important when we are discussing additives that we are being specific about the type of additive that we're talking about. So we don't just want to say additives are added to breakfast cereals to replace sugar content. We want to be specific and say it's sweeteners that are replacing the sugar content. Remember, we're being specific to the product or the scenario in the question, and in this question we are referring back to breakfast cereals, which we have done. Our opinion is then shown in orange, so we're saying this is a good thing, and then our consequence shown in green, as it will contain less sugar, so reduces the risk of tooth decay. So we've given a fact, an opinion and a consequence, and we've also linked back to the scenario or the product in the question, which is breakfast cereals. So we've now gained a first mark. However, we know a little bit more about this answer. So we've went on and given a developed consequence, which is shown in blue. This also reduces calorie or energy intake, so reduces the risk of obesity. So this is a developed consequence. We've developed that consequence further and we've gained a second mark from doing so. So if your fact and your opinion is going to be the same, you don't need to write those out again. You just need to add in a developed consequence and then you can get 2 marks. So another example 2-mark answer. So we've started off with our opinion in this case by saying preservatives are suitable. Remember, we're wanting to state the specific type of additive, so we stated preservatives. We've then given our fact in purple by saying they slow down bacterial growth. And when we are given our consequence, so increasing the shelf life of breakfast cereals. And again, we've been specific to the product in the question, and we've stated that it's breakfast cereals that we are evaluating. So putting those 3 parts together, your fact, your opinion and your consequence, you've now gained your first mark. We've also gained a second mark. We've developed this answer further and said therefore reducing food waste, which is our developed consequence shown in blue, and that's how we've got a second mark. So putting both of those 2 previous answers together, the one about sweetener and the one about preservatives, you would now have your 4 marks for this question. If you want to pause the screen now, read the answer, and then have a go at improving the answer shown on the screen. So additives can be added to foods to replace or enhance natural colours lost during processing. This is good as it will make you want to eat it. However, this person has not got any marks for this answer. So if we look a little bit closer, we do indeed have a fact highlighted in yellow. They have given an opinion which is highlighted in pink, and they've also given a consequence which is highlighted in turquoise. However, we have not referred back to breakfast cereals. We have also not stated what type of additive it is that is going to be enhancing or replacing these natural colours are lost during processing. So with 2 simple tweaks, you have now gained a mark for this answer. So by stating that it's colourings, not additives, and by stating that it'd be more likely that you want to eat the breakfast cereals, you've now gained a mark for this answer. If you have a little look on the screen right now, you have also got a potential 4-mark answer. So this is the type of answer that would be expected from an additive question. So if you want to pause the video now and you can read through that. So if we move on to another example, we're being asked to evaluate the suitability of using fair trade foods in a school canteen. So again, we are wanting to remember to consider the command word. In this instance, we're being asked to evaluate. Remember, your structure for evaluate is fact, opinion, consequence, and then you can also give an optional developed consequence if you wish to do so. We also want to think about the mark allocation. Again, this is a 4-mark question. So in order to gain those 4 marks, you can give 4 separate fact, opinion, consequences, or you could give 3 fact, opinion, consequences, develop one of those answers further and gain a developed consequence mark, or you can do fact, opinion, consequence twice and develop both of those answers. Finally, we've got to consider who or what we've to refer back to. So in this case, we're evaluating for a school canteen. So it's really important that we are using the statement school canteen in our answer. So if we have a little look at the example 2-mark answer. So we've been given a fact here in purple that fair trade foods can be more expensive. Remember, your facts are just short, simple statements or just descriptions. So it can be as short as this. We then want to give an opinion. So this is unsuitable for the school canteen. So remember, evaluations can be good or bad things. And you can have a mixture of these in your answers, or you can stick with all positives or all negatives for your answer. We also referred back to the scenario in the question, which is a school canteen. And we've given our consequence in green, as pupils may not be able to afford them, causing food waste. So putting those 3 parts of the answer together, you have now gained your first mark. Remember, to get a second mark, you could add in a developed consequence, leading to lower profits. So our developed consequence is shown in blue, and that's how we'd get a second mark for this evaluation. If you want to pause the screen right now, have a little read of the answer below and see how you can improve it. So fair trade products give workers a fair wage for the products they grow or make. This is good as they will have a fair income for their family. So we have given a fact shown in orange. We have then given opinion shown in pink. And then we have given a consequence shown in turquoise. So we've got all 3 parts of our answer. However, we've not been specific to the scenario in the question. Remember, we're evaluating fair trade products for the school canteen. At no point have we mentioned a school canteen or who would eat at a school canteen or who would go to the school canteen in this answer. So what we could change this to is we can keep our fact the same, that fair trade products are giving workers a fair wage for the products that they grow or make. We're keeping the same opinion that this is a good thing. However, we need to change the consequence because a fair income for their family isn't going to be relevant to a school canteen. So we might want to say something like, as this will attract more ethical pupils to eat at the school canteen and increase their profits. So we've been specific to the school canteen by saying it's going to attract more pupils to eat at the canteen. So now I want to have a think about how we could maybe improve our answer structure. So if you want to pause the screen right now, have a read of the 2 answers on the screen and think about how you could possibly improve the answer structure for these answers. So if we take a look at these answers, they both have the same fact that the fair trade ingredients have more food miles. They both have the same opinion that this is bad. However, they've got 2 separate consequences. Now in this instance, you can change this answer slightly so that you are just adding in a fact, an opinion and a consequence, and then adding in a developed consequence. So that saves you time as you're not having to write the same fact and the same opinion again. So we could change this answer to say fair trade ingredients have more food miles. This is bad for pupils concerned for the environment as it will restrict their food choice at the canteen. So you'd get your first mark here for fact, opinion and consequence. And then you can gain a second mark for a developed consequence by stating, also, foods may have a shorter shelf life, causing food waste for the canteen. If you look on the screen right now, you have an example of a potential 4-mark answer that you could write for evaluate the suitability of using fair trade ingredients for a school canteen. Are you still a bit stuck on the difference between question types? You're not quite sure what the difference between your answer is for describe and explain, or explain and evaluate? Then we're going to go through some examples right now. If there was a question asking about the disadvantages of cooked chill foods, if you're asked to describe the disadvantages of cooked chill foods, remember you just want to write a short statement, a short sentence, a short description, a short fact about the disadvantages of cooked chill foods. So one answer could be that cooked chill foods can be high in salt. If you were then asked to explain the disadvantages of cooked chill foods, we are sticking with the same fact or the same description that cooked chill foods can be high in salt, but we then want to give more detail and we want to give a reason why. So we're saying, so increasing the risk of high blood pressure. Remember, for explain answers, you always want to stab your answer. So you want to use the words so, therefore, as, or because. If you're then asked to evaluate cooked chill foods, you want to add in an opinion. So your opinion is shown in red here by saying that cooked chill foods are unsuitable. We've stuck with the same fact that they can be high in salt, and then we've stuck with the same consequence that is increasing the risk of high blood pressure. If you then knew a little bit more information about this answer and you wanted to give a second or get a second mark for your evaluate answer, you could add in a developed consequence. So again, cooked chill foods are unsuitable as they can be high in salt, which increases the risk of high blood pressure, would be your fact, your opinion, your consequence. So that's your evaluation. That's where you get your first mark. Therefore, increasing the risk of stroke would be your second mark, as that's a developed consequence. That's you developing that consequence further. Remember that your evaluations can be positive or negative. For evaluations, you would always just be asked to evaluate the suitability of cooked chill foods. You wouldn't be asked to evaluate the advantages or disadvantages. Another example could be the benefits of UHT foods. So if we were asked to describe the benefits of UHT foods, we might want to say something like UHT foods have a longer shelf life. So we've written our statement, our fact, our description. If we then wanted to elevate that answer and make it into an explain answer, we'd want to give a reason why. So UHT foods have a longer shelf life as our fact or description. We've stabbed our answer, so you want to use the word so, therefore, as, or because. And we stated as they are heated to a high temperature, killing bacteria. So we've given a reason why they have a longer shelf life. If we're then asked to evaluate, we're adding in our opinion. So we're saying UHT foods are suitable as they have a longer shelf life, which is our fact, and then our consequence as they are heated to a high temperature, killing bacteria. If we then wanted to go on and gain our second mark with a developed consequence, we could stick with the same fact, opinion and consequence as we previously have done, and then stated, therefore reducing food waste, which would be a developed consequence and how you get your second mark. So some top tips for perfecting your evaluations. Firstly, you always want to refer back to and be specific to the scenario, the product or person in your answer. Secondly, you want to make sure that you're always providing an opinion. You're simply just saying if this is suitable or unsuitable, or if this is a good or a bad thing. It's really important that you're putting these key statements, your opinion, into your evaluate question. Without this, you've not evaluated correctly. And lastly, you always want to make sure that you're looking at the mark allocation so you know how many fact, opinion, consequences and or developed consequences that you need to write. Remember, you'll get 1 mark for each fact, opinion, consequence that you get, and then a second mark you can get from any developed consequences.